Alright, welcome back. Brandon Clayton, the Algebra Guy. Today's lesson, write equations that are parallel or perpendicular to some axis. So that's one of the skills or teaks that we need to make sure we master today. A to G, write an equation of a line that is parallel or perpendicular to the X or Y axis and determine whether the slope of the line is 0 or undefined. I think it's pretty simple and straightforward, and students tend to do pretty well on this topic, but let me go over it either way. Alright, so let's start with this graph here. I'm going to ask you 4 questions for each one of these graphs. First of all, what's the equation of this line? What's the equation? Sometimes we're better at doing y equals mx plus b, but not understanding how to do a vertical or horizontal line. So what would be the equation of this line? Then the best way I tell students to think about this is consider all the points on this line. So if I thought about all the points of this line, what do they all have in common? So this point, this would be a -2, 1, 2, -2, 2, -2, 3, -2, 4, -2, 5, -2, -2, -1, -2. What do you notice? That the first number in each one, the first coordinate each time is a -2. The x coordinate is always going to be what? -2. So I know that the equation of this line is always going to be -2. X equals -2. No matter what, your x is going to be -2. So what would that look like if you were on a table? If you had a table, it'd just be -2, 1, -2, 2, -2, 3, and so on. So you just have all -2's there for x. So that's your equation. X equals -2. It's always going to be -2. So what's the line slope? So slope, remember, change of y, change of x. So what's the slope? So let's think back to this table I just drew. And what if you forget about the slope? You could just simply try to find it with a couple of points like you would any other line. So you can say my change of y here is +1, -2 to -2. That didn't change at all. So my change of y is 1. And that's change of y over change of x is 0. Well, 1 divided by 0, well, you can't divide by 0. That's undefined. So if you forget, you can just literally just do what you've been doing. Take 2 points and try to divide them. Matter of fact, if you put in your calculator 1 divided by 0 in the graphing calculator, it's literally going to come out undefined. So it's going to tell you the answer right there in front of you. So keep that in mind. So this slope here is undefined. It is parallel to which axis? Well, this is obviously parallel to the y-axis. And don't get that confused that we have x equals 2 as the equation and that it goes through the x. Just look, it's parallel to this y-axis. Here's the y-axis. And perpendicular, which means it forms a right angle. See that right angle with our x-axis. All right, same thing here. What's the equation of this line? Well, just as this was x equals -2, you can imagine if I drew some points to describe here, this would be 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, 2, 5, 2. You notice that no matter what, the second coordinate is always going to be 2 every single time. What is the second coordinate? Well, that's our y coordinate. So this is always going to be 2. In this case, you know, if it was higher, it'll be always 4 and so on. But in this case, it's always 2. So no matter what you get over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no matter what, it's always going to be 2. Now, that tells us that this is the equation y equals 2, because all the time y is equal to 2. What's the slope? If you forget that horizontal lines are always 0, instead of trying to remember mnemonics or any other systems, you can just literally just look for the slope from those 2 lines. So 2 minus 2, there's no change there. Well, 0 to 1 is 1. And it doesn't matter which ones you take. It could be 0 over anything. In this case, it's 1. With 0 divided by anything, it's just still going to be 0. You know, I always think I have 4 daughters. So if I come home, my daughters are like, I want some money. I'm like, sure. But if I have no money and I divide it between my 4 daughters, 0 divided by 4, how much each one of them going to get? Absolutely nothing. That's the easy way for me to remember that 0 divided into anything, I don't have anything to give. It's going to be 0. Again, if you put that in your calculator, just that slope, that calculation, you'll find that it's going to tell you 0. So you don't have to memorize anything there. Well, is it parallel to the x or y axis? Well, this line is obviously parallel to the x axis and perpendicular to the y axis because it's forming this right angle with the y axis. Now, I do want to include this. Some students tend to remember a slope face in trying to understand all this. So if it's going up, it's positive. If it's going down, it's negative. If it's straight up and down, it's undefined. If it's horizontal, it's 0. Okay, that face looks pretty pathetic and sad, but it's a way that some students prefer to use to try to remember it. So there's a ton of things that you can do in order to try to jog your memory on that. All right, let's write some equations so that we can see how it shows up on the test a little bit, and we'll close out with the star question. All right, so what's the equation of the line that passes through the point 3, -2 and has an undefined slope? So let's find 3, -2. And we really don't have to write this on a graph, but sometimes it helps to visualize what they're talking about. So it's undefined slope. Remember, undefined slope is straight up and down. It's vertical line. So again, if you didn't remember that, you can remember the slope face. That's a terrible line. You can remember the slope face or the or just draw some points until you can jog your memory. So that's a straight up and down line. Now that I can visualize this, it becomes really easy to answer the next questions. So what's the equation is the first question. Well, now that's simple because all the points here are going to have, let's see, 3, 0, 3, 1, 3, 2. So all of them have an x value that's equal to 3. So it's going through the x-axis, x equals 3. Is this parallel or perpendicular to the x-axis? Well, it's going to be perpendicular to the x-axis because look, it's forming a right angle with that axis. All right, same scenario, right? So the same scenario, but this time we have a 0 slope going through 3, -2. Okay, that's simple because that just means that it's going to be a horizontal line going through that same point. And now let's answer these questions. What's the equation here? So instead of taking my x value, I'm going to be looking at the y value. Instead of taking this x value like I did a second ago, I'm going to be looking at this y value, so I know it's going to be y equals -2. Because no matter what point I pick here, it's going to be 1, -2, -2, 2, -3, -2, 1, -2, 2, -2. So everything y equals -2. Is it perpendicular, parallel or perpendicular to the x-axis? Well, this is parallel to the x-axis. All right, what does it look like on star? So here's one of the questions a few years ago that showed up on star regarding this particular scale. What is the equation of the line that passes through the point -2, 7 and has a slope of 0? Now, if you've gotten really comfortable with these, you could probably answer the question straight away. But if you needed some assistance and maybe forgot, I would encourage you to draw a graph and just sketch out what they're talking about. So first, for those who want to see it more quickly, here's what I would do. I would think to myself, slope of 0. Okay, slope of 0 is when I have a line that's going straight across. It's going to be going straight across and it's going to go through the y-axis. So I know I'm looking for my y value. The y is not going to change here. So what's the equation? It's going to simply be y equals 7. I could tell that just from thinking through that, y equals 7. But let's go ahead and draw it to make sure. -2, 7. Let's assume it's about right there. And now we have a 0 slope. 0 slope. So there we go right there. 0 slope. And now I can see that no matter what points I have, and you could put the point name here, -2, 7. So that means this is going to be -17, 07, 17, 27, 37, because we haven't changed the height at all. It's just going to be 7s all the way across, and that tells me that the y is always going to equal 7. And that does it. So parallel, perpendicular lines. All you need to understand, and again, if you need the slope face, you know, the slope face to help you remember some things about the slope, I would draw that. Here's the undefined. This important part, this undefined part, if that helps you remember, or just identify some points and find the slope yourself. Your calculator will tell you whether it's 0 or undefined. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. I'm Clayton, the Algebra Guy, and I will see you next lesson.